Hello, my name is Jeremy, this is Red Means Recording, and this is the Ashun Sounds Machine Hydrasynth. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it in great detail. There's probably going to be a few videos on this because this thing is so powerful and there's so much under the hood that I really want to do it justice. So we'll start with going through each section and just sort of like making patches and talking about it on the way. Today, we're going to do an overview of the whole synth, and we're going to talk about the oscillators. We've already talked about this being an 8-voice digital synthesizer. It has 3 oscillators. It has 2 mutants for each oscillator, which are like syncs and FMs and very complex modulation sort of things to audio route modulation through the different oscillators. 5 envelopes, 5 LFOs, 2 effects engines, pre and post, a delay and a reverb as just built-in effects, a powerful arpeggiator with ratchet and a chance to ratchet, which is really, really cool. We'll talk about that later. 2 filters. One is a multi-mode filter with a whole bunch to choose from, and the other one, filter 2, is a state variable filter that can be moved through low pass, bypass, and high pass, morphed, like continuously. Almost everything here is modulatable, and that includes modulating things back into themselves, which is really, really cool. It also has CV and gate. We have a mod 1 and mod 2 for inputs, and then we have 2 mods, a clock, and pitch and gate out, which is really, really cool. I also have the Hydrasynth desktop over on my modular station, and I plan on integrating it with the modular system and seeing what it can do over there. We'll talk about that a little bit too. A ribbon controller, which can default to a number of different modes. We'll go over how powerful this is in terms of modulation. An 8 macro section here where you can assign multiple level deep modulation sources and destinations to get really, really wild control over multiple parameters at once. It has polyphonic aftertouch. I know a lot of people are excited about that, and can act as an MPE controller, I believe, with the most recent firmware update. In the back, we have left and right output. We have a sustain pedal input, expression pedal input. I have an expression pedal and sustain pedal plugged into both of these because it allows a lot more control over the synth, and it's just fun to play that way. A MIDI through, God bless. MIDI in, MIDI out. USB for MIDI and firmware updates, and power. And as you can see, this thing is big. It's really, really big. Let me grab the desktop synths real quick so you can just compare sizes. Here's the desktop's buddy. You can see it's a lot smaller. It's really, really compact for what's going on. The desktop version has these pads here, which also have polyphonic aftertouch and can be used to play the keyboard, play the sounds, but it has the different modes like scale modes and a fretboard mode, which is actually pretty cool. You don't have the ribbon on this, and you are missing, let's see, we still have all the ARP controls, still have all the macro controls. You're missing direct control over envelope 1 and LFO 1's amount normal to the filter, but those are like a click away. There's not much menu diving on these, despite the fact that there's so much going on, because they have really, really ingenious shortcuts that they've set up for everything, which we'll talk about. So that's the overview of what this is. Let's get into how it do. So over here, we have the ability to browse our presets. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold shift and show you this off first. So I played this sound and I adjusted the voice of it. And one of the things that's really cool about this, there's tons of these little tiny like quality of life things that ASM have done with the Hydrasynth that are really, really neat. And one of them is you can turn on an option that will ask you if you want to discard anything you've done to this voice before you change presets. This will allow you to say yes or no, or save it before you move on, which can get annoying if you're just trying to browse presets really quick, but is really, really good if you've made a new preset and you accidentally change this. And, otherwise it would have just gone to another preset and you would have lost everything. So we're going to say yes, discard changes. When you first boot up the synth, you want to go into your system setup and turn off Protect, which is one of the 4 menus over here that will allow you to write presets to the system. So I just hit Home, which you'll be hitting quite a bit. So I'm going to hold down Shift and turn this, and it's going to move me through A, B, C, D, E of banks. And D and E come empty. I have started to write some presets to D. So I'm going to move to a empty preset. The other thing that you can do to create a new preset is hit init, and it will initialize the patch. So now we have an init patch, which means we can start talking about the oscillators. We have 3 oscillators. Oscillators 1 and 2 are the same. They can either be single or wave scan, and we'll talk about that in a second. Oscillator 3 can be one of the normal waves or one of a bunch of wavetables that come with this thing. So you have access to all of that, but it can't wave scan. It can't move through multiple wavetables. So let's go back to oscillator 1 and talk about single mode. Now we're in single mode. There's a saw, and we're in polyphonic right now, so. You can see we got this little cool oscilloscope here that shows us what's going on with the synth, which is pretty cool. Useful, especially when we get into the stuff over here. So, in single mode, I have access to this incredible collection of wavetables. And even that wavetable selection, that wave selection thing can be mapped to an LFO envelope or many other things, which is really, really cool. So, I mean, not much to say on here, but this is going to come into play when we go into wave scan mode. So wave scan mode, if I turn this now, nothing's going to happen because I only have one wavetable loaded up into my bank of wavetables. So I'm going to go to wavelist edit, and now I have 8 wavetables I can load into this from the selections that are available. At the time of recording, there is no way to put your own wavetables in here, but I didn't find that to be a limitation in any way whatsoever when I was designing sounds on this. Cool. So let's say you want to create a custom wavetable. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what a wavetable is, basically it's a collection of single cycle waveforms that you can morph and move between. There's a lot of different implementations of wavetables, but the ones that I think we're most familiar with these days are the way that Serum works, where you have a wave that you travel through to get interesting timbres and tones depending on your modulation. So I can go through here and I can pick different waves using these knobs. Like this. Holding down the button corresponding to the wavetable that you're selecting will preview that wavetable, which is pretty useful. The other thing that you can do is hold down Shift and turn this top knob here, this first one. Actually, you can turn any of these. And what they'll do is they'll start sorting all of these wavetables sort of like incrementally. So there's like banks of wavetables. You can see that we just passed through Horizon. There are 8 Horizon wavetables, and now we're in SyncLav, and then that moves on to Esquire there. So let's go to Horizon just because it's kind of mellow and cool. So like I said, you can do this to anything. I can go over to here and start iterating from this point forward, here to this point forward, here to this point forward. And if you do get a wavetable that you don't want in there, you can hit init and turn it off. But we don't want that. We actually want all the wavetables. So now we have 8 wavetables loaded up there. And again, there's a huge collection of these, so lots and lots to explore. And you don't obviously have to have these in order. In fact, you can even randomize these wavetables by holding down random and just hitting random here and having it select random wavetables, which is really cool. So we have a very diverse set of wavetables here. Now let's hit home or oscillator 1 again. Now we can use wave scan to scan through that wavetable. Pretty wild, right? Yeah, just hitting random on those got me a very interesting thing here. So we can, let's just go with that for right now. So oscillator 2 is the same. I'm going to stick with oscillator just 1 right now because this is going to get really complex really quick if we start adding other oscillators. But we'll talk about adding the other ones in a second. I can, if I want, hold down save, hit oscillator 1, and then oscillator 2. And now oscillator 2 is a copy of oscillator 1. So that's something you can actually do with envelopes and LFOs throughout, which is pretty neat. So next I want to talk about the voice section before we move on to this other stuff. In the voice section, you have control over whether or not the sound is polyphonic or mono. You can select whether or not the mono low or high, so which note takes precedent. There is a unison function. Analog is going to have like a sort of nonlinear like warming effect on the thing, Warm mode's going to even do that more. You can hear we just lost a little bit of high end. Random phase. So let's go over to oscillator 3 real quick and turn it up by going to the mixer. Go back to voice. So in digital synths, every single time you hit a key, that wave is the same phase all the time, meaning that in its cycle, it's going to hit in the same place with every key. Random phase is going to actually throw each note a little bit out of phase, and what you're going to get is a more sort of like swimmy, like chorused almost sound, like, and this is more like an analog thing, but you're also going to lose a little bit of volume. Random phase off. Random phase on. We also have a few different stereo modes here. So I'm going to turn oscillator 3 back up and go back to our voice. So stereo width, if you turn this up, you hear that it's spreading the voices across the stereo thing. So rotate is just going to kind of rotate through different stereo positions. Alter is going to alternate between them. Random is going to be random, which is actually going to be kind of cool for ARPs and stuff like that. You can get an interesting... That's a good demonstration of the differences between there. You can see that when you hit voice, you can either move through the 4 pages that are available like this, or you can hit page. We're going to hit page for right now. Page 2, pitch bend. Vibrato amount. So that's the vibrato. And then you can change the rate here. And then you can sync it to the BPM. So I talked about the pads on the desktop unit and how they can be put to scale. Well, guess what? You can do that here too. So right now I'm in chromatic and C, so root note C, chromatic, all the notes like you would expect. But guess what? There's all kinds of scales. So you can constrain the scale, which is pretty useful. Custom scales as well. And if you hit edit, then you can edit 8 notes of the scale. So that's pretty cool. All right. So I thought we were going to talk about the mutants next, but let's talk about the filters real quick. So you have 2 filters, filter 1 and 2. By selecting these buttons up here, you pick which one of these you are going to be affecting. In filter 1 mode, and we'll show you all the modes there, this is a drive. Actually, you know what? Let's do this real quick. I want that wave scan to wave scan. So I'm going to hit envelope 3, hold envelope 1, and assign this in the mod matrix to a wave scan. So let's see. Wave scan. Turn up the attack, turn down the decay. Filter 1. Hit filter 1. And now we have visible feedback for the filter. Right now we're in a 12-pole ladder filter mode. Here's resonance. The Hydrasynth has multiple filter modes. Some of them are bass compensated and some of them are not, meaning that in traditional filters, usually when you turn up the resonance, you lose bass, and you can kind of see that happening here with the output of the display. But we'll see that some of these are bass compensated and you don't lose the bass when you turn up the resonance. We talked about this being drive. It's a very nice woody drive. Envelope 1 and LFO 1 are normalized to the filter, and you can see that reflected over here in the way that this is laid out. Envelope 1 and LFO 1 are in the filter section. Envelope 2 and LFO 2 are in the amp section. So you know what you always want to reach for if you want to mess with the amp envelope or the filter envelope. So just for shits, we'll go ahead and turn up our envelope. And then go into our filter envelope, turn up the attack. We got ourselves a drone. Okay, so let's talk about the filter types. Filter 1 has a ton of filter types, and we're going to do that by selecting this knob right here. So 12 pole ladder, 24 pole ladder, Fat 12 and Fat 32 you can see are bass compensated. So whereas the 24 pole ladder loses that bass after the resonant bump, Fat 12 does not. Fat 24 pole, a low pass gate, which I find has a very nice big tone, MS-20 low pass, high pass. I don't remember what this 3LER stands for, but it's a very, very powerful filter, bass compensated, and yeah, it's just pretty nice. There's a band pass version of it, a high pass version of it, and then we get to vowel. And I want to show you what happens when you select vowel. Take a look at the screen here. Yeah, I love you too, baby. So, you have a lot of controls over the vowel sound here. And if you hit down, you can see here before we go down that here's your velocity envelope and LFO1 amount. If I turn LFO up, we'll see that. We already have our envelope 1 amount up. Go down here. You can actually change the vowel order, which is just really, really fun. A little obsessed with the vowel filter. I guess you could probably make modern talking if you wanted to. Okay, so let's go back to a more traditional filter so we can hear filter 2. So I'm going to hit filter 1 again. Go to my type, go to just a 12 pole ladder, turn down the resonance a bit, and turn the cutoff all the way up. Filter 2. So now we have moved to control filter 2 here, but I also want to hit filter 2 here so we can see what's going on. So morph is where drive was in this case. So this is going to morph between low pass, bypass, and high pass. So you have a state variable filter, which is really, really cool. You can still control the amount of cutoff and LFO. And then morph between different filters. Go back to our mod matrix, turn that down a little bit. Filter 2. We're going to also assign LFO1 to the morph. And then turn down LFO1. So now we have morphing through the state variable filter, both here and the cutoff, which is really, really cool. And you can adjust to taste, obviously. Can choose, by hitting filter 1 and going to page 2, to route the oscillators through either these in series or send them out in parallel. So we were hearing series where filter 1 feeds into filter 2, but now we're going to hear these in parallel. So to do this, I need to go to the mixer and either hit down or hit mixer twice to get to the second page. Here we have control over the pan. Well, we have control over a lot of things, but we'll talk about this in the next video. So here we can send these to the different filters. So I'm going to send oscillator 1 100% to the second filter. I'm going to send oscillator 2 50-50 and oscillator 3 like that. And obviously I need to turn these up. So now I have control over shaping both of these sounds. Both of these filters, excuse me. And if I change filter 1 again to like something a bit more obvious. So yeah, that is the oscillator section, the voice section, which we'll return to in a little bit in the next video, and the filter section. So I hope this has been informative. Stay tuned for the next video. We got a long ways to go in discovering just how dope this Hydrasynth is. Thanks for watching. This is Red Means Recording. My name is Jeremy, and I hope you have a wonderful day.